Yeah.
I look at it as I still haven't decided what I want to do when I grow up.
Well, that's totally hit the nail on the head in the sense that we then live in that limitation, that limited, it's almost like the icing on the cake, just that
Mhm.
description of who we think we are, which is built up from all the, being told you're this, you're that, you're not that. And I can definitely resonate with that. And I think the last 20 years my path has been kind of almost deconditioning and just relearning and
Yeah.
seeing the the one that was born, and the little
Mhm.
girl that was growing up wanted to be seen for who she was, but because I took on all the what I was being told to be, not in a nasty way. I had a pretty good, nice environment, but it happens. It's almost like looking back now, there's some great stuff that happened, but there's also some stuff that didn't happen. And that was about me being able to express me just as me, as I was supposed to be, and to be seen for that.
Mhm.
But because, that didn't necessarily happen, and that can be a generation.
Mhm.
No, 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 no. It's actually all these opportunities in life are, if we can go within and actually begin to see, oh, okay, that's just an emotion. That's from, let's say, take an example. Um, I kind of had that sense of I wanted to be liked. I wanted to be, therefore I felt as though I had to be a certain way in order to be liked and to fit in. And I think that's quite common for a lot of people, that they
Mhm.
want to fit in, don't we? We want
Yeah.
to belong.
Yeah.
Therefore we try and act in a certain way in order to fit in.
Mhm.
Um, and we had a school reunion, and I can remember on the WhatsApp group just suddenly feeling in myself just a feeling of wanting to fit in and wanting to like. And I was like, hang on a moment. So what did I do? So I felt the kind of the emotion, and rather than denying it or suppressing it, I just welcomed it and
Mm.
just said, come out. Whatever emotion is there, just come out. And it did. It did express itself at I think it was later that day. And I cried. I had a lot of, it was
Wow.
freeing. It was releasing all that emotion that had been stored up. Just but that one little thing. And if we can begin to tune into our bodies to notice the sensation that the body is giving us, that signal of
Mhm.
stop, just welcome that, just welcome it. It does go, because actually all emotions and feelings are naturally supposed to just come in and go. They're not supposed to be stored,
Right.
but
Right.
we store them when we can't handle a particular situation. And do you know what? Then that WhatsApp group, and it sounds trivial, but that WhatsApp group, that alumni, and then meeting up face to face, that feeling of wanting to fit in, gone.
Mm. Interesting.
It was just
Yeah.
beautiful connection
Mm.
with.
Being a whole person, because you're
Mhm.
feeling that you have to
Mm,
remember these things all the time.
mm. And yeah, absolutely. And an example really that springs to mind there is, and also maybe something practical that people can begin to do for themselves, is to notice where they're coming from. So if they're
Mm.
deciding to go and do something, is that coming from a place of should and ought,
Mhm.
or you have to?
Right.
Just beginning to notice, because that's coming then from a place that is, call it the ego self, or a self that wants to continue to improve itself and add stuff to it. But
Mhm.
what you're saying, and I totally agree, this is a reductionist. This is to actually see, am I going to be doing this from a place of, freedom, groundedness, joy, and this feels great. I'm just going to get into this and just do it. Or is it, am I kind of reinforcing a belief that I have about myself, in which case it's very limited and often can backfire, or it just feels totally different. It feels very small and contracted.
Mhm.
uh,
All right. Well, welcome everybody to another episode of Define Your Purpose. And really excited to be joined today by someone who helps female professionals mostly navigate life's transitions and live more in the flow. Out of Castle Cary, England. I want everyone to welcome Kate Adey to the show. Kate, thanks so much for joining.
Well, yeah, in Somerset, just south of Bath. Just give that some geographic pointers.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, and pronounce the name Adey. I know it's sometimes a bit difficult to pronounce someone's surname, isn't it? I probably can't. Clausewitz.
Yeah, Clausewitz. Yeah. Both a little off.
Yeah. Oh, good to be here. Thank you. Nice to meet you, Carl.
Yeah. I've been looking forward to speaking with you. I know you've been coaching for quite some time. How did you get started in coaching?
Yeah. Well, it all began really when I was working in management consulting. So I worked in a big corporate, which is about 35,000 people worldwide. And it was whilst I was there and I was working on a particular project that was called Brand Manners, actually. It was a book that a partner at the firm had co-written. And I was involved in translating that book into kind of an internal proposition. And it began to look at living the brand. And I got very curious about what does that really mean for people? So in an organization to really live a brand and how do they take that on board and behave? And it kind of moved me away from the processy kind of work and the technology work that I was doing to really focus on the people. So I decided to do a coaching qualification. And that led me actually to leave the big corporate and go to a much smaller, specialized consulting firm where I was able to put the coaching into practice. And then decided to set up on my own back in 2008, specifically
Okay.
to support. And I support men as well, actually. I probably need to voice that that it's anyone really, any leaders in professional services, so that's law firms or management consulting, who are navigating an emotional transition in their life. And some of those examples really are, it could be that you've been promoted into a more senior role, but are really feeling lonely, feeling anxious, feeling stressed, or maybe you're transitioning to become a parent or are a parent and wanting to navigate that transition back into the organization that you're working in. And I just, so that's how it kind of started, is just my real interest and intrigue in people and understanding people a lot more. And it led me along the path of doing a lot of different courses, a lot of different, in addition to my coaching diploma. I suppose, I'll pause there. I could go on and on, but I'll pause there and see where we go next.
So how did that transition work that you came, what was the corporate type that you came out of, like the kind of the corporate area that you came out of? What was that like? And how did that transition work for you?
Yeah, at the time, the corporate that I was in, so it was a large global consulting firm. It worked well, but I also felt a misalignment. I felt as though I wasn't aligned with where the organization was going, which was much more technology. So that might be something for the listeners to kind of think about. Are you aligned? Your own values, are they aligned with the organization's values? And I felt a misalignment, almost like you see the bricks, if there's the kind of one of the bricks is not in that vertical line, I kind of felt a bit like that. And so and I've always been someone very curious and positive focused. So to go, okay, what does that mean? Maybe I need to go in and talk to other people, other partners within the consulting firm, which is what I did, to see whether there was another role that I could play. And I think the biggest thing for me, which is something I suppose I have tapped into over the years, even at university, is intuition. Is that wisdom that is always there? We call it the
Mm,
gut, call it intuition, whatever one wants to call it.
mhm,
But it's there without thinking. It's kind of like called, in the zone, and that information, if you like, or that sense of knowing, was there that I needed to move on,
mm,
and I acted on that quite proactively then, and met some headhunters and began to investigate where do I want to go next. So part of my own, I suppose, way of helping others, both practically and profoundly, to navigate things that happen in one's life, I definitely feel I can parallel that, or even I've been through some transitions in my own life, and have learnings along the way. And I suppose the same intuition came about back in sort of 2008 when I was at the smaller consulting firm, and then I really just felt I wanted to go out on my own, to
mm.
have that opportunity to set up a business and to do it in a way that I wanted to do it. Plus, also, I was growing a family as well to give me that flexibility. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, that wisdom, that inner wisdom that is there for everyone to sort of tap into, that's something that I bring into the way that I work, but really helped me navigate my own transitions from big corporate, smaller companies to my own company, and then within my own company, to navigate um, the growth and the development and who I want to work with and building the business, etc. So yeah, it's something I'm very curious in, and I've done a lot of, I suppose, studying and being involved in different courses and groups to continually deepen my understanding of who we are, and ask some deeper questions as well
Mm.
along the way.
Awesome. So that is that the kind of work that you help your clients with then?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I get people coming, kind of going, okay, I'm in this organization. I feel as though I'm stuck.
Mm,
I mean,
mhm.
take one guy that I'm working. I'll
Right.
do one example, and it's, I don't know whether I want to stay. I don't feel as though I'm really living fully. I feel as though I'm kind of in a toxic environment. What do I do? Don't know. I have
Yeah.
no idea what to do.
Mm,
And so to be able to support them to really, one, notice how they get very caught up in believing, a certain narrative that maybe they've been
mhm.
told as they were growing up, and that therefore they kind of living in that conditioning,
Right.
helping them to begin to step back and to see that for what it is, but then also by not being in the thinking, but to notice the thinking, they can begin to realize that that thinking happens. It's like feelings happen, but there is always something that's aware of those thoughts, of those feelings, and it's that I'm in that moment helping them to go, oh yeah, there is always an awareness, or whatever one wants to call it, a presence. What is that presence? And this is where that shift from, I suppose, being in one's head to being in flow with life comes in. That's the journey I kind of take people on, which I've been on myself as well, to really live in more freedom and joy, and happiness, which at the end of the day,
Right.
you say, Carl, that's kind of what we're looking for in life, is joy, happiness, peace, purpose
Yeah.
on this planet.
Yeah. 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 I think so.
Yeah. Um,
So you help your clients find, is it always furthering their career or, becoming an entrepreneur or
it
moving
could
up
be.
in the world?
What was that last thing?
Or
Sorry.
moving up in the world, is it always
Moving up in
been
the
a
well,
theme like that?
yeah, in a way, yeah, in a way, just beginning to take that step back and look at what you really want,
Mm.
and even if
Yeah.
you don't know what you don't know,
Mhm.
being okay with that. Because a lot of the
Mhm.
the people that I work with, of in the kind of area of having to know, so be the consultant, be the lawyer, and the knowledge is power.
Mhm.
And I suppose this is, and I can definitely resonate with that. But then it's also just being okay with not knowing, because in that not knowing is the space of opportunity, and beginning to really step back and support someone on a journey. And it varies depending on where the individual is, but I'm always helping them to, almost step into themselves and understand, again, have a different relationship with thoughts and feelings, to begin to see how this human operating system works. But out of that, there's effortless action. So there's practical steps that come out, not through overthinking, but just because they appear. In those times
Mhm.
where you may be having a coffee with a friend and then suddenly an idea appears, or I don't know, you're going for a run if you're sporty, or you're playing a musical instrument, and that's when the ideas happen.
Mhm.
Why do they happen then? It's because there is no overthinking. We're not caught up in those thoughts. We're just in that moment.
Mhm. Mhm.
Or in that flow of life. So, um, yeah, I love helping people who are either in a career and wanting to progress within their organization or to look for a change. I'm not like a business coach that is working with solopreneurs to then grow their business.
Mhm.
That's not my
Mhm.
sweet spot. It's more people within business in organizations. So they're an employee,
Mhm.
but realizing there's something just not quite right, and there's maybe something that they're missing, or feeling as though there is a bigger part to play. The back to your sort of title, back their purpose in life. Um, so it's very much supporting that individual in to have that, to create that time and space for themselves. Um,
Mhm.
yeah,
That's great. I like how you kind of targeted your people who I guess you'd call it a niche, right?
yeah. I find it difficult to niche, but we're
Yeah,
always told niche, niche.
right, right.
But yeah, and it's at the end of the day, we're all people. And I think
Mhm.
one of the things that I've learned for myself is, particularly when we're in corporate life, we have a role, and
Right.
that label of that role, but sometimes we can become so attached to it and
Mhm.
over identified by it, that we disconnect actually from who we are. And we disconnect
Right.
even from from the body and from sensations and from what's actually naturally happening, and we become overly identified with that label. And
Mhm.
it might
Mhm.
even becoming a parent, that as well. We think we have to be that particular
Right.
way of parenting, was actually just strip away all the labels. And even when you go into that organization, that meeting room, that boardroom, what is around the table?
Mhm. Mhm.
They're people just like you.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're going to have, if they're very caught up in their ego, is going to be a lot of insecurities and potentially being reactive. And, a lot of people that I work with have bosses that can be, um, sort of shooting from the hip in a way. They're very reactive because
Mhm.
they're in their head, they're in their ego, they're identified by that concept of who they think they are,
Mhm.
rather than actually just beginning to be in the moment and be present. So I work with people a lot on relationships and conversations, and also sometimes with their bosses as well, which can be very powerful.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, w
yeah,
I feel like the labeling, like you were saying, it limits potential too. It's kinda like, a child is told they can be anything or do whatever they wanna do, and then when they pick something and do something and have the career and choose to be the one thing and be the label, like you say, then all that potential is kind of gone. There's no more limitless, like, I can be anything and I can do anything.
yeah,
And so I kinda I think,
yeah.
I look at it as I still haven't decided what I wanna do when I grow up.
Well, that's totally hit the nail on the head, in the sense that we then live in that limitation, that limited, it's almost like the icing on the cake, just that
Mhm,
description of who we think we are, which is built up from all the, being told you're this, you're that, you're not that. And I can definitely resonate with that. And I think the last 20 years has been, my path has been kind of almost deconditioning and just relearning and
Yeah.
seeing the the one that was born, and the little girl that was growing up wanted to be seen for who she was, but because I took on all the what I was being told to be, not in a nasty way. I had a pretty good, nice environment, but it happens. It's almost like looking back now. There's some great stuff that happened, but there's also some stuff that didn't happen, and that was about me being able to express me just as me, as I was supposed to be, and to be seen for that. But because that didn't necessarily happen, and that can be a generational thing, I then grew up thinking that particularly for me, was about being kind of only speak if you know the answer and be quiet. And so, yeah, absolutely, my potential was limited. But I think just being the curious girl that I was, I began to kind of, push against that and go, okay, something isn't quite right here. But for a long time, I lived in that identification of who I was being told I needed to be, or who I thought I needed to be. But thank the Lord for the journey that I've been on, I suppose, of just I can see what happened, and I can see what happens for a lot of us. And I suppose what I'm curious in every day, we all have opportunities in everyday moments to to learn almost what's triggering us. So let's say, in a relationship, or whether it's with a child or with a colleague or a boss or a partner, anything that triggers us is an opportunity for us to kind of take that moment and look at, okay, what was going on there? What's almost the suppressed emotion that's still there, that's been, because I believe I needed to be that way, that I'm reacting to. So we've got,
Right.
and what happens is when we are triggered, we can react and blame, and we think it's the other person that's doing something to us. No, 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 no. It's actually all these opportunities in life are, if we can go within and actually begin to see, oh, okay, that's just an emotion. That's from, let's say, take an example. I kind of had that sense of, I wanted to be liked. I wanted to be, therefore I felt as though I had to be a certain way in order to be liked and to fit in. And I think that's quite common for a lot of people, that they want to fit in, don't we? We want to belong.
Yeah.
Therefore we say, we try and act in a certain way in order to fit in. And we had a school reunion, and I can remember on the WhatsApp group just suddenly feeling in myself just a feeling of wanting to fit in and wanting to like. And I was like, hang on a moment. So what did I do? So I felt the kind of the emotion, and rather than denying it or suppressing it, I just welcomed it and just said, come out. Whatever emotion is there, just come out. And it did. It did express itself I think it was later that day. And I cried. I had a lot of, it was freeing. It was releasing all that emotion that had been stored up. But that one little thing. And if we can begin to tune into our bodies to notice the sensation that the body is giving us, that signal of stop, just welcome that, just welcome it. It does go, because actually all emotions and feelings are naturally supposed to just come in and go. They're not supposed to be stored.
Right.
But we restore them when we can't handle a particular situation. And do you know what? Then that WhatsApp group, it sounds trivial, but that WhatsApp group, that alumni, and then meeting up face to face, that feeling of wanting to fit in, gone.
Interesting.
It was just beautiful connection with, girlfriends, and some that weren't friends at school, just meeting them for who they are. There was just love and joy and laughter, and I didn't have any of that emotion still there that was triggered. There was nothing. Yeah. Have you ever felt like that? Have you ever had a sort of an experience where you are triggered, and then actually have welcomed the emotion, and then it's passed?
Yeah. I think I've come to realize the importance of that too. That to kind of separate yourself from your thoughts and your emotions, that you're not those things, and you have a space between everything that happens to choose your reaction. And that's really critical, because that's where you have the most influence in the world, is
Yeah.
that space where you make that choice, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And I think what you're saying, we say the same thing but in different words, and that space between the thoughts, or that space to have, the stimuli response, there is always that
Mhm.
space. That space is not tiny. The space is vast. The space is almost, actually, if we look at our rooms, if we take away the furniture and the walls, what is there? Space, but we don't notice it because we clutter
Mhm.
our houses or whatever with furniture. But it's the same with ourselves. We clutter ourselves with, thinking and feeling, but
Mhm.
actually
Mhm.
beyond that, or behind it, whatever you wants to say, there is a space that is peace, love, joy, presence,
Mhm.
consciousness, whatever one wants to call it. That's always there, and it's always the case. We just
Right.
miss it. It's like,
Mhm.
it's again like maybe on a piece of paper we have lines. We notice the lines, but we don't notice the space between the lines,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
which is always there. There's white space. And this might sound a bit weird to your listeners, I don't know, but it's something to begin to. So I'm kind of thinking, turning it into a how. How can people um, access, or just experience the space? And they might have in nature. We have that sense of love sometimes, where we're just walking and we see the trees. The trees do their stuff. We might just feel that oneness. That is the space that we're talking about here. It's or maybe doing sport, and when you just come back and go, whoa, I can't even remember. You're just kind of in that flow, in the zone. um, that is accessible the whole time, every single moment. And we have a moment, a moment, a moment, a moment. But what do? We spend most of our lives suffering because we're caught up in the mental
Mhm.
turmoil
Mhm.
of trying to be the person that we think we need to be, or deeply conditioned and stressed out by how we were told we had to be
Mhm.
by our parents or by whoever we were brought up by. And that's not real, if you like, because but it seems to be.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
So real.
Yeah.
um,
I think it's as important to unlearn as it is to learn, almost, because people look at it like, I'm learning more and more as I grow, and I'm just this big vast pool of knowledge, and everything that I learn I need. But you don't need everything that you learn, and a lot of the things that you learn end up being counterproductive for you later in life. Like you were saying, the voices in your head from earlier, that way earlier in life, when you were little, and they said you have to sit still and not yell, and or whatever it was
mm,
at the
mm,
time, that
mm,
those fragments are still there in your mind, that you learned, and now they're stopping you from being a whole person, because you're
mhm,
feeling that you have to
mm,
remember these things all the time.
mm. And yeah, absolutely. And an example really that springs to mind there is, and also maybe something practical that people can begin to do for themselves, is to notice where they're coming from. So if they're
Mm.
deciding to go and do something, is that coming from a place of should and ought,
Mhm.
or have to?
Right.
Just beginning to notice, because that's coming then from a place that is, call it the ego self, or a self that wants to continue to improve itself and add stuff to it. But
Mhm.
what you're saying, and I totally agree, this is a reductionist. This is to actually see, am I going to be doing this from a place of from a place of freedom, groundedness, joy, and this feels great. I'm just going to get into this and just do it. Or is it, am I kind of reinforcing a belief that I have about myself? In which case it's very limited and often can backfire, or it just feels totally different. It feels very small and contracted. So you can begin to, and I think this is where, certainly with a lot of people that I work with, because they're, again, in an environment where brain power and knowledge is power, and so that above the neck, having to big thinkers, absolutely, there's a time and a place for that, but there's also in life an opportunity to connect with the bodies and move from the head to the heart and to the body, and begin to notice the sensations that we call a body, and use that intuitively as a signal in your life. So if you get a sense of stress, heart rate increasing, sweaty armpits, or butterflies in one's stomach, and it's going on and on and on, it might be something that you can just go, hang on a minute, I just need to stop. What's the story that I'm telling myself that I'm believing? Just begin to ask yourself some questions and use the body as an indicator to take that pause and ask a question. What is it that I'm believing? What are the shoulds? What are the oughts? And then you can just begin to kind of de-layer, really, or throw out some of these beliefs initially. That could be an initial decluttering of just, so you feel a lot lighter. Yeah.
Do you think it's important to write these things down so you stay on course day after day?
Each to your own, I think.
Yeah.
Journaling has never been, actually, I mean, it's interesting. I traveled for a year after uni with a friend. I wrote a diary. I think I've got loads of them. I've still got them. I sometimes write. Again, why are you writing? Are you writing to try and figure something out? In which case, no right or wrong here. Or are you writing freely just to express, wow, what an amazing experience that happened, or something that happened that you then just want to leave with a question? What is the message in this? Or I think to write, to journal with inquiry could be a great thing for people to do, and to have a particular, a nice little book that is your book of go-to. But be curious about what's happening. This isn't, rather than writing to figure it out, because then you're back in your sort of overthinking, rather than actually just not reflecting, but almost just inquiring. What's the message in this? Is there something in there, in that experience, that I'm not seeing? And particularly with, and this is something I've been interested in the last, I suppose, since I was pregnant in 2006. I've got 3 boys, one nearly turning 18, then 16 and 12.
Awesome.
I was very much in my head, but then had to become, but also was interested in connecting with the body and what it's capable of. But I think that led me on a little bit of a path to go, look at what's happening. What are the even symptoms, things that the body's expressing that you're ignoring? And this can be health related as well, and it's hugely helpful just to take any kind of, so whether it's a backache or I don't know, redness on the knuckles, or a cold, what's that telling you? It's telling the body is really wanting you to look at something.
Yeah.
And that might be that you haven't got a balance and you're not resting and restoring. Or you're not eating well enough, or you're not drinking good water, or in terms of using the body as a signal, using the sensations and the things that are happening as a signal to then again be curious and investigate. Because I think society has been conditioned again. We've all been sort of conditioned along the way to believe that a symptom is the thing that we have to get rid of. Actually, I've learned in the last 5 years or so, the symptom is a message. to say what's really going on here, and also that the body is trying to get back into balance. So it has a cold. The cold is just mucus. It's trying to get rid of something, and normally it's a toxicity, be that toxic thinking,
Mhm.
that you've breathed in, eaten, you know. I'm going slightly off track, but it's still it's something that I'm interested in. It's all connected. It's all connected.
Yeah, yeah. So these are all the kinds of things that you help clients realize then?
Yeah, realize. Yeah, I bring it into my coaching depending on what the individual is coming with as well.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
and so if someone, and yeah, a lot of people will come with, or headache, or I've just had this, or I've just had that, and I'm
Yeah.
just curious as to how they see it. So I'll find
Mhm.
out what their perspective is on it, and just say, would you be interested in looking at it in a different way?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it depends, and because I have a curiosity there, and it's an inquiry into what's happening for them there and
Mhm.
then it's light touch, and it allows them to kind of really look at perhaps some assumptions that they're making, um, or even a belief, um,
Yeah. Yeah.
that can really then just that if they've seen it as a problem, that problem disappears.
Mm.
They no longer see it as
Mhm.
that, and you can
Mhm.
tell in their body language as well. Stress is just falling off. They look more relaxed. They have an idea about what they can do. That's all very. Um, it's effortless when
Yeah.
it's coming
Yeah.
from that place of inquiry.
I think it for me, a lot of that, sort of thing comes down to how I'm spending my time versus investing my time. So if I'm doing things that are, um, not productive, lots of times I'll find that I don't sit correctly, or I'll end up being not not feeling correctly the day after or something. It'll make me sore from. Uh,
Hmm.
Whereas when I do things that are an investment, as far as spending my time reading or physical activity or playing an instrument or lifting weights, or any of those things, I don't end up feeling badly later. Whereas if I were to just sit and watch movies all day, my back would end up hurting. And I'd gain weight, and all these things would happen because I just did that, and it
Yeah, yeah,
throws off your balance.
yeah.
Mm.
And sometimes we don't use that as a signal. So they say the backache or something, we'll just,
Mhm.
I've got to go to the physio, whatever. We seek the external, which might still be the thing that you do, but rather than ignoring the kind of going within and going, okay, what's my lifestyle like at the moment? Am I doing things that are
Mhm.
really helpful for the body, mind, soul? And questioning it. I don't think enough people actually ask questions of themselves. They're very quick
Mhm.
to point the finger externally or wanting more. So and I've been there as well. 20 odd years ago, you kind of almost you're in that self improvement because you believe that this is the thing that needs to be improved. This body mind,
Mhm.
and that's all there is. Therefore, but this body mind is only one part of it. That's the thing. Well, not even a part of it. It's a limited um, sort of a vehicle through which you are. It's a bit like a car. You have
Mhm.
to.
Mhm.
It goes around. This body goes around. This mind goes around. But actually, if you think of high performance or high potential, that's there to access. Where's that? Where's that come from? Does that come from in this body or in this? The brain's an organ, or does it come from inspiration? Um, from back to that space? Does it come from somewhere we just haven't looked at before? We might have felt in our life, but then we've ignored or we've just moved on. Because most of us have felt it at some point, that real, I suppose, high potential joy, that moment, but we've missed it. We're quickly back into the content of our experience, our overthinking, drama, if you like, almost the drama. We're back into the drama, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's more that there is that space of peace and presence that it's available. It's there for all of us. And what a better world and better place it would be if more of us begin to see what's already there.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Yeah, absolutely.
And not everyone is like, we're all on different paths. We're all on. Yeah, I've got, and also I think, so it depends on, so when I have conversations, that wherever that individual is in their path, I'll meet them there. And this is not like me being evangelical at all, because that would be me in my head about a certain way that things have to be done. No. This is about just a practical and profound way of working with someone. But also, I think there's probably if I kind of express the way that I coach has changed. So I've been coaching for a long time, sort of over 20 years, and initially it was very much like kind of goal-based coaching, performance-based coaching, John Whitmore stuff, and the grow model. And you start off like that, and you get better at listening. And then I moved into more kind of psychological, so NLP, reframing, positive thinking, all of that. But those two things are both within, I suppose, if we think of I know this was a coaching colleague put a good post out on LinkedIn about it being like a house. So the first sort of goal-based is like being in a one room of a mansion, and you're just seeing that room. The next psychological level of coaching is kind of, okay, you begin to see, maybe there's some other rooms I can go into and look at those. And then where I've transitioned to in my coaching now is really to go, well, maybe there's something outside of this mansion. Maybe there's a different way of actually looking at life, reality, myself that's totally different. And maybe there is this, how about looking at actually at who we are and looking at space and awareness. And I suppose I'm interested in, and not that I read quantum, I've read in the past quantum physics, and I listen to podcasts and that kind of stuff that are pointing to the same thing, or non-dual, which is all again an understanding of pointing to the oneness that we are, and all religious teachings are actually pointing to it. But religion has become the kind of looking at outside rather than looking within what's already there. So I kind of read quite a bit and listen quite a bit, and I'm in groups, particularly non-duality coaching groups, that still, they provide me with a community whereby we can challenge each other and support each other in this space of coaching. So that kind of third dimension of coaching, if you like.
Yeah. Nice.
So yeah, if that makes, don't know if that resonates.
Yeah, that's a great explanation. So what are your plans this year then? I mean, where do you want to take your practice and all?
Yeah, so I'd like to continue to do what I do one-on-one. So I love working with individuals, and I have an intensive coaching practice, or a 3-month or a 6-month. But the real thing this year is one, to appear on more podcasts. So it's great to be on this one.
Nice.
But also two, to create some coaching circles. So if anyone is interested in joining a coaching circle, have a safe space of support, community, learning, growing, but within the group, do get in touch. And also, I'm part of the Women's Business Club, and we'll be setting up an executive coaching circle. So if there are any kind of, like, I suppose, more executive level women, and this is particularly for women, then also do get in touch, and I should be sharing more about that in the next week or so on LinkedIn.
Nice.
So love working, in a group. The power of a group is enormous. The energy, the support,
Mhm.
um, learning some more kind of, some of the stuff that I've been pointing to, I would bring in terms of learning modules as well. A lot of experiential learning, a lot of support, and in the moment coaching as well for those who would like it. So that's really where this year is going. Yeah.
Great. Fantastic. So where's the best place to get a hold of you then if people want to have that conversation? Is besides,
Yeah,
you're on LinkedIn, obviously.
your LinkedIn, I think, is the best one. My website at the moment has got a holding page. There is an email address on it, but I need to work on that. Started to work up behind the scenes it's evolved. I just need to get the new messaging out there.
Okay.
So LinkedIn is probably the best, or my email, which you'll also find on LinkedIn on my profile. Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic.
Okay. Great, Carl. Well, it's been really good to chat with you.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks a lot for taking the time. I hope we can catch up again sometime soon.
Yeah,
I have events, and I'd love to have you maybe for a
pleasure.
group or something, a group of my
Your
own.
group. Yeah. Fabulous. Yeah. Yeah. Let's keep in touch.
Okay, okay, great. Well, thanks again, and good luck with everything in the new year.
Thanks very much, Carl.